Real quick before we jump into the video, guys, for the rest of this year I'm going to be on a fundraising campaign to raise a minimum of £1,000 for the Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. For more information on the charity and what it does, and for the donation links, please look in the description below. And thank you all for your continued support. Enjoy the show. What's going on, guys? Right Moment Teacher now, so we're back with some opinions, hopes and expectations for Pokemon Legends Arceus. In the last video we did our opinions, hopes and expectations of Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. So if you missed that one, go watch it because I'll be referencing some parts of that video here. So if you want to know what I'm talking about and my thoughts, definitely go check them out. So, Pokemon Legends Arceus is a really interesting game that very much came out of left field. Now, I talked about this in my roadmap video that I did at the beginning of February, where I said I wouldn't be too surprised if Game Freak did this. Well, guess what? I actually was surprised and accurate that I got this right. So we got a very interesting game here. We got a game that is very much set in the past. There's been a lot of debates over a lot of the PokeTubers as to when this was actually set. We've had some sort of 100 years ago, 50 years ago, to even like 500 years ago in feudal Japan times. Very interesting to kind of see the differences. Be very interesting to see where it actually does end up when it comes to where it's set. Does it not even have a specific time? Is it going to canonically move between different parts of time? We can kind of hazard a guess based on the lore of the game and stuff like that, and what we already know where it can roughly be, but we don't have an exact answer yet. But that makes this game interesting, because it's a very different style of game to what we've experienced. It looks pretty open world. I don't know if it's guaranteed to be open world. It's possible it's just a vast open space, but it's actually still a very linear storyline, much like the case with the wild area in Sword and Shield, in my opinion, where, yes, it's a pretty open space. You can kind of free roam around with different Pokemon, etc. But I'll be honest with you, the storyline, even through the wild area, was definitely very linear. You always traversed over certain parts of it at certain points in the game. Even though you could access the rest of the wild area, it wasn't worth it because the levels were too high. So, yeah, I'm hoping that this game is genuinely open world, and that there's a lot of interactions that you can do with various different Pokemon throughout the game. But one of my biggest concerns about this game is that it's made by Game Freak. Now, I've been very critical of Game Freak, particularly in the last few generations, where I feel like the games have not lived up to not just the expectations of the fanbase, because let's be real, the expectations of the fanbase is insane. It's ridiculous what the expectations are. But I think one of the things that really bothers me about Game Freak is that even just simple mechanics in games have been clunky and awkward and not particularly good looking. And there are things like your character's doing a barrel roll, there's like the Pokemon throwing mechanic in the game. All of these little things can go wrong, and I'm surprised in general that this project was given to Game Freak and not Ilka, who is doing Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. I feel like if the roles were reversed and Game Freak did Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl and Ilka did this game, I would expect it to be a lot better. And that's my biggest concern with Game Freak. I'm really worried about what this game's actually going to be. Obviously, we've got a lot of speculation so far as to what the game is. We don't entirely know, personally, but it's definitely an interesting thing to talk about. Alright. The next thing that we're going to talk about is the starter choices. If you haven't seen it, your starter choices are Cyndaquil, Oshawott, and Rowlet, which we've never seen a trio of cross-generation starters before. And while thematically they make sense, I'm not going to lie, the starters just don't seem good, in my opinion. Like, all three of these starters have very clear kind of not favorites even within their own generations. Albeit Cyndaquil is somewhat arguable, although more recently I've been a Totodile fanboy as opposed to Cyndaquil, but I have no issue with either. But it's one of those where I just feel like the starter choices just feel very haphazard. Maybe that's because I'm used to having starters within their own gens as trios, and I've not really seen them kind of break away from that before, unless you're playing ROM hacks or fan games like Pokemon Reborn and stuff like that, where you have all 18 starter choices available to you, so you've got a whole bunch of options there. And by all 18, I mean 18 at the time when the game was released, or when I last played the game, so that's something to bear in mind. But yeah, in terms of the actual games themselves, I don't know how I feel about the starter choices. Obviously, when I play through the game, I'll probably play through it a few times just to try out the different starters. Maybe we might get the other starters throughout the game no matter what anyway. Whatever, it's going to be interesting to figure it out. And all sorts, but it depends on the type of game that we're getting, how impactful the starter choices actually are. The next thing that was worth noticing that we actually also figured out from the starters that are on the Pokemon official website is that we have no abilities in the game. When you look at the website for the starter choices, there's no listing for their abilities in the game, but they are listed in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. They have their regular base abilities, Overgrowth, Torrent, and Blaze. But in the Pokemon Legends Arceus page, that does not exist. So that is an interesting one to think about as well, because obviously not having abilities makes this game very, very watered down. Obviously it could well be that it's set in a period where abilities haven't been discovered yet, which is also a possibility, which does make a lot of sense. Thematically, this game is set a long way back in the past, especially when you look at canonically in our world, it's a long time ago. So it's definitely interesting that we don't have abilities, but it does mean that this game doesn't have a lot of competitive capability. It's largely gonna probably end up being a collectathon style game, or a researchathon style, whatever the case might be with the game. But yeah, no abilities is interesting to me. Obviously, I'm used to abilities as someone who plays competitive a lot of the time, so it does make for a bit of a difference. But we had no abilities in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, for example, but that was very much watered down early generation competitive Pokemon style meta, just with newer Pokemon and updated move pools and stuff like that, so nothing too special. But something I really want to see in this game is answering unsolved areas. And by unsolved areas, I mean there's a lot of ruins in and around the Sinnoh region that we don't necessarily know how they became ruins or whatever. There's the old chateau that's in the Sinnoh region that we don't really know too much about. Maybe we could see that modernized. There's the Lost Tower, for example, although it's not really a tower, but it's below Solaceon Town, and it's where you put the keystone in to encounter Spiritomb in the main series games. So I'll be interested to see if that actually is a tower, how it became ruins, how Spiritomb became trapped in there. Definitely would give some nice lore into the game. It would definitely answer a lot of questions that have been definitely unsolved, unanswered within the Sinnoh region, particularly lore-based in the game. There's a lot of things to explore there. I would love to see if the game is set far enough back in the past to where these were not actually ruins, like the Solaceon ruins, for example. Yeah, a lot of other things too. Even like the Sinjo ruins, for example, which was only an event in Heart Gold and Soul Silver if you had Arceus that you transferred from the Diamond and Pearl Japanese event, which of course did not exist outside the rest of the world, so those people who did that event probably hacked in their Arceus, right? So that's the thing. But yeah, I would love to see a lot of these unsolved areas get some attention. It'd be really exciting to kind of see what happens with all of those, and definitely if we do get some meaningful lore within this game. Next thing, very much speculative at this point, we're going to be looking at boss battles. Now, boss battles is something that's really fascinating to me, particularly when you compare this game to Breath of the Wild, which is what a lot of people have been making comparisons of. This game has very Breath of the Wild feels about it. Well, there's boss battles in and around all over the place within Breath of the Wild game, and these boss battles could be Pokemon, right? We did see in the trailer that a wild Garchomp was being battled. Maybe that's a boss Pokemon. We don't know that yet. We didn't have any indication of that necessarily, but we know that it exists. We know that Pokemon behave very differently out in the wild. You get some that were kind of playful and kind of approaching you, like the Chimchar was in the trailer, as was the Bidoof and stuff like that. So, and you could definitely see a world where there's more aggressive Pokemon. And alongside that, there could be Pokemon that you specifically have to chase and hunt down, right? Much like the Galarian Zapdos was from Sword and Shield, right? You had to run around the wild area and try to catch it until it got exhausted, and then it turned around and fought you, right? So there's a lot of different interesting things we could see with boss battles in this game, if it's a thing. Now, my worry about this, of course, is that there's no multiplayer in this game. On the official website, it's listed as a single-player game, whereas Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is listed as 1 or 2 to 4. So obviously there's going to be online features in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. It does not appear, at least not right now, that that is going to be the case with this game. Now, there is the possibility later down the line they might announce that there's a multiplayer feature. They may have just not finished it yet, or not tested it yet, or whatever. That's a possibility, but historically, I don't think that's ever happened. So that will be an interesting one to consider. But I would love to see some boss battles in the game. Maybe even things like Regigigas, Arceus may be the boss battle when you collect all the plates. Right, because obviously the big deal with Arceus and the stick with him is all of the plates. And that's also connected to Regigigas' lore as well. So there's a lot of things that we can talk about there. The next thing, and kind of the last thing I want to talk about, is kind of a very odd speculation, but I would like to see what I call new old Pokemon forms. So what I mean by that is Pokemon that have existed in the past, but have either adapted and evolved into the Pokemon that we know today, and thus have become extinct. So they're kind of new in terms of new to the franchise, but they're old Pokemon, right? So they no longer exist. Maybe we might see previous forms of what were the fossils, of course. That feels very unlikely to me, but that could be interesting. We could see the fossil Pokemon more plentiful, which is what kind of happened in the Sword and Shield, particularly with the Crown Tundra DLC, which I wasn't a huge fan of the way they executed that, but it's an interesting concept nonetheless. You know, what are we going to see with regards to Porygon, right? Because Porygon was created after this period, assuming that these games are dated far back, or this game's dated far back enough. So I'd like to see some old Pokemon that no longer exist have forms within the game. I don't know what Pokemon I would give that to, or what types it would be or anything. It's just a fun idea to speculate about. I don't expect it, honestly. I'm not holding my hopes up for that, but it would be interesting. It would definitely add some new depth to this game. Because I think depth is going to be the key thing to this game, as it is. Even though I've seen a lot of people, including Joe Merrick, tweeting out this game is a main series game, I don't buy it at the moment. I'm going to say Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is the main series game, and this is a spin-off. Yes, Game Freak is doing this game, which has not been historically the case, but we've already seen norms being broken with another game other than Game Freak doing a remake, which has never happened before, so we'll see. Overall impressions, I am pumped for this game. I really am. I cannot wait for this one. I'm really looking forward to learning more about what the game has to offer us. I'm sure we're going to get a much more presents from it. At least 2 more presents probably before we actually get the full release early next year. I expect another trailer in the summer maybe teasing something that we don't know yet. Yeah, as well as announcing the release date for Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, and then next year here on Pokemon Day would be a good time to do it. We get another teaser for this game. I'm excited, I can't wait. Let me know your thoughts on Pokemon Legends Arceus down below. I'm excited to hear what you think we're going to get, what are you hoping we're going to get, and what are your thoughts on the trailer. Let me know in the comments down below. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name is Ramon Teacher. Stay safe, stay awesome, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.